Coming up on the payoff, Courtney's honesty about her life and drinking history are absolutely riveting. And the miracles that have happened to her in sobriety might really make this recovery thing seem worth it if you're struggling. Sit back and relax and get ready for an unfiltered story with the spiritual solution. But first, Big Bro.
Stand by the ocean floor.
Hey.
Courtney.
I'm unrolling the toilet paper so I can get my tissues ready.
All right, hold on. I got to do one thing. I got to switch my headphones. Give me 1 second. All right. So, Courtney, first of all, thank you for taking the time.
Oh, thanks for asking. It was a shocker, actually, but it's exciting and it's nerve-wracking, but I think you're doing a great thing.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And people that are willing to do this. I heard somebody say just a little bit. I was actually at a meeting before I came here, and a woman said, when you show somebody who you are, it's just so much easier for them to show you who they are. And also you drop all the crap. Like once you let people see who you are, you drop it all.
I think that's one of the things that I love about you and AA is that because I hate superficial stuff, it's just not the way that I was made up. And that's all what AA is, especially like real friendships in AA.
All right, but let's get right to it. What is your sobriety date?
So my sobriety date is October 11th, 2007.
So how many years is that? 14?
14, yep. Crazy.
When was your first drink?
So my first drink was very anticlimactic, actually. It was with my older sister. She's 2 years older, and my best friend. And it was a concoction of who knows what in a Snapple bottle. And we drank at my mom's house, and I think I went to bed. And Martina stayed up with my sister.
That's your friend.
Yep. And she got drunk. And yeah, I think it's kind of an ironic story because of the path that I took, but that was my first drink. Now, my first hit of pot was more indicative of the path that I was going to take. When I smoked for the first time, I remember going into my sister's room, and I think I asked her if she had pot. I told her I smoked it before, which was completely not true. And we smoked for the first time together. And I remember thinking, you got to pretend like you know what you're doing,
So when did you have that first drink? Like how old?
7th or 8th grade.
Okay.
So 13 or 14.
And how about the pot?
Yeah, same time. And then in 8th grade, so I think in 8th grade, you're 14, right? Or
yeah, 13 or 14.
Yeah. So I actually dabbled in acid at that time, too. So it was very quick. Like I started drinking, trying pot, and then tried acid, like all within that, year.
What the heck is it like to trip on acid when you're in 8th grade? What's that experience like?
I don't really know about the acid that I took. I've probably done it maybe 10 times, probably from like 8th grade to sophomore year of high school. And you know what? Like sometimes I'll even look at trees now and think that reminds me of when I was on acid. I don't know. Just like an out of body experience. I was a rebel kid. For sure.
I love getting to know people like this because I know you, but I don't know all this stuff. So you're in 8th grade and you start to drink and you smoke pot. How does the engine get rev like that?
So, when I'm in 8th grade, my older sister's a sophomore in high school. So she is, experimenting, drinking and all that. So that's my in with alcohol and parties. Then I get a job at Dairy Queen. And the manager, he was like 18, his name was Todd. And, I started drinking 40s and doing acid with Todd and this other kid, after work. And it's crazy because, I grew up with these girls since grade school. We went to high school together. They're still my friends today. So these girls, when I ended up coming out as an alcoholic, they were kind of shocked because I didn't abuse and drink and drug with them all the time. I had certain friends that I would, and I wasn't doing this consciously. It was just, I don't know. I had the Dairy Queen thing, and then I had the Heather thing, and then I had, my friends who were doing their own experimentation. So.
And Heather's your sister.
Yep, Heather's my sister. Yeah, so it accelerated. It was off to the races early on.
Did you have any awareness? Like I tell people, I knew because my mom did a pretty good job of giving us a heads up that it was running all throughout my father's family. Did you know that it was in your blood? Is it in your family?
1,000%. Yeah. So my dad, both my parents are alcoholics. My dad had DUIs, one of which I was in the car with. I'll never forget that, getting pulled over and,
How old were you?
I was, it's a good question, Pete. I don't know, like 8th grade, 9th grade.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely formative years. But yeah, and then my cousins on my mom's side, I mean, it's just all over. I have a younger sister too. She's actually sober 2 more years than I am.
So it's in your family and you start to see it accelerating. You're hanging out with the Dairy Queen squad and then you're hanging out with your friends from grade school. You went to a Catholic grade school, right? You go to a Catholic high school.
Yeah.
When did you start to think like, man, this is almost working a little too well? Or was it just a ton of fun?
Yeah, no, I don't think I made that connection. What was running through my head at that time was I never want to be like my mom and dad, and it's ironic because, I would sometimes be pissed at my mom for drinking. And then I remember one time she drank wine, but we had an old liquor cabinet and I just dumped everything down the drain because I was so pissed at her, and then thinking later on, like, oh man, I wish I didn't do that because then I could have drank that. But I wasn't thinking that I had a problem. If anything, I was thinking, I don't think I was able to like articulate this then, but I was thinking I was like a bad kid or a lost kid, because I got in trouble with the cops when I was in 8th grade. I had this party at this people's house that I babysat for when they were away. I literally had my rights written to me. I mean, I ended up drinking one night in high school and just getting so drunk and confused, like my vision was going, and I ended up really far away from the house. And my mom, like, I ended up at a Wawa and somebody called the cops. And so, like, I wasn't thinking, oh, I have an alcohol problem. I was thinking my childhood is so messed up and I'm drinking and I'm lost and I don't have good parents. That's what I was thinking.
Did you see it as a solution almost? Like, I need this to get through?
No, I don't think I thought that. I think I was just doing it,
Yeah.
I wasn't doing it to piss anybody off. I wasn't, I just was, I guess, trying to have fun. I don't know.
Was it fun? I mean, it sounds like fun. I mean, it's so funny because I'm another alcoholic. It sounds like fun. The babysitting thing is pretty crazy. I mean, that's aggressive. That even, I'm like, wow. Like, Courtney was pretty wild.
Yeah. And like my friends in high school, like the Poconos, just a couple hours away, just people would rent a house and do like the prom thing. Like, later on in high school, I think people had to deal with the cops, but no one was dealing with cops in 8th grade.
Exactly.
Like, I don't know. I was making bad decisions early on, and maybe it was like a form of rebellion. Maybe it was trying to fill a hole. I think regardless, it's just the journey that I had. I don't think it was until college that I actually thought I had a problem. Yeah, definitely.
How does the ball move forward? Like, you're in grade school, you're kind of ahead of the game. How is it when you get to high school? What's your drinking like there?
Yeah, so high school is pretty much, weekend parties. I have this boyfriend, we smoke pot, we drink, but like, I'm into the boyfriend and whatever. Then I get to college. I break up with that boyfriend in high school, get to college. Everybody is drinking in college, right? So I'm drinking. People talk about blackouts in college. I can relate to that. There was nothing really that stuck out in undergrad as far as like trouble is concerned. I hit the trouble mark early on. And then as people were like experimenting with like mushrooms and doing all kinds of crazy stuff, I was more into like, let me find a group that's going to chill with me, drink with me, smoke pot with me. It was kind of weird. It was kind of like, elevated early on, seventh, eighth grade, and then college time, it didn't taper off in the sense of my drinking. I was definitely doing plenty of that. It's just, I didn't have any crazy stories until graduate school.
Was that conscious at all, by the way, to make the move to kind of back off to like maybe a more relaxed crowd?
Yeah, it was just more comfortable for me because I didn't have to socialize. I wasn't interested in that. We would hit a party, but then we would go back and really get, we would do our own thing. Also, we did not want to share the weed. We did not want to share the alcohol, you know. So we were in it with, the same kind of motive.
How did alcohol affect your relationships just in general, romantically and with your friends? Like, did you become more withdrawn?
Everything escalated when I was in graduate school and then in my 20s. Big time. So like I had this one relationship in grad school. I met the guy. He lived locally to where outside Philly. And I would like pop in and out of grad school because I only went to classes 4 days a week. And then I would come home and like drink with him. And God, it was volatile. It was so volatile. Fighting and jealousy and tons of drinking. In undergrad, I ended up getting a DUI locally in the suburbs here, and I remember
The suburbs of Philadelphia. That's where you are.
Yeah, and I remember thinking, I remember asking the police officer actually, like how bad is this going to be? Like, what are the consequences? And I remember sitting in the back seat of the cop car. He dropped me off. Like, my mom didn't have to pick me up or anything. He dropped me off at the house, and he said, you'll just get ARD. It's your first offense. Like, kind of shrugged it off, and I was like, oh, okay. And I had plenty of people in my life, my friends that I grew up with whose older brothers had the DUI. It wasn't like common, but it wasn't unheard of. So I kind of just told myself, all right, this is bad luck, right? And then, the cop was right. I ended up just getting the ARD. And when I had to do the safe driving alcohol classes, I remember people had like multiple DUIs and I was like, they're dumb, like that'll never happen to me. And, I lost my license for a little bit, but I had the boyfriend to drive me around, and it just wasn't super inconvenient, it wasn't super scary. It was scary, but you basically just pay a fine and go to the class and lose your license for a little bit, and that's it.
You're an attractive woman. I would imagine you were an attractive younger girl. You're from like the suburbs. Like, did you feel, was there any entitlement? Like, for instance, when you get in trouble with the police officer and I'm hearing how bad is this going to be?
In terms of what?
In terms of just like, getting away with stuff. Like, oh yeah, you got dropped off. Yeah. That's a pretty big deal.
Yeah. I don't know what I don't know. And kind of, in retrospect, it makes me think, wow, that was lucky, but no, I was never the girl that like batted her eyelashes or anything like that.
Okay. You mentioned your family. You don't want to be like your parents. Did that affect your drinking at all?
No, but it was just that back and forth that I was referring to with, dad's not reliable, dad's drinking, dad's selfish, mother is constantly drunk, Dad's drinking too, but he's not in the picture. My parents divorced when I was like 10. there might have been moments, Pete, like throughout grade school or high school or even college where, um, I thought, gee, I wonder, but that doesn't really stick out to me because there was such an excuse of that age range and experimenting. And the fact that, especially in high school, all my friends were drinking. There wasn't anything crazy. Like the whole party and getting arrested in 8th grade was, I don't have a good set of parents. That's why I did that.
Yeah.
I'm a lost kid.
I have a very strong bond with you through just being your friend and also the fact that you're an alcoholic. So it's like, it's compounded. It's real strong. But I don't know what it's like to be a female alcoholic. Like, is there anything unique about that?
I would say,
because the reason I ask is I walk into my first meeting and there was more guys than women, and it was a mixed meeting. And that's still sort of the scenario. Not all the time, but you get what I'm saying.
yeah, I can appreciate the question. I think what comes up for me is the fact that, like, I was in this community, and this, my mom had friends and I had friends, and, I'm in this community where I'm, creating a reputation for myself, a negative reputation for myself. And I think that was more darkening, like, the cloud over me than, here I am, a female drinking a lot. I being a female and being a drinker certainly lends to more risk in terms of like sexual trauma or, people taking advantage in that way. And, there was, definitely decisions that I made in the sexual arena that I wouldn't have made as a sober woman. But, again, I think back on the decisions I made, particularly when I went from like Narberth to media when I was like in a sophomore and blacked out and ended up at that Wawa where somebody called the cops. Like, I mean, Lord have mercy, I could have been murdered,
Yeah.
I was just,
You hear about that stuff. You hear about blackouts now in sobriety, and it's terrifying. And it's terrifying to think that people go through that today. Like it's basically time travel, but it's the scariest kind of time travel you could ever experience or not experience, I guess. Does it start to affect your life as you get closer to the breaking point? Like, or does it start to really spill over into your school, into your career, or are there times? Because I know for me, I finally passed a point where I was like, I got to stop this, but I don't want to. Like, for instance, like the consequences just were really never great enough until they were. But when did you start to really have consequences?
Yeah, so it was after grad school. I got a job. I went into this like occupational therapy program at this private Jesuit school. Somehow I made it through undergrad and grad, got the second DUI, then got my job. And I'll tell you, Pete, like because of the childhood, I've always wanted my own paycheck and my own job so I could just like live my life. Like I just wanted separation and independence. So I get the job. It's a dream job. Like, how did I ever get this job? I don't know. I have no idea. Like that night before the interview, with this boyfriend, we just get hammered and I go in hungover. Like, I don't know. It's just crazy, to think that I got so lucky. But anyway,
did it affect the interview negatively?
I don't know. I got the job.
Okay.
It's just, that just fuels, you're good, Court. You're good. You got this. You know what I mean? So anyway, 2005 is when I graduate. I start working. 2007 is when I get the second DUI. So from 2005 to 2007, meet this guy. This guy is the love of my life. Like, oh my God. Yeah, it's volatile.
Yeah.
But, he fills all my boxes. He's family oriented. Now, he's family oriented. The family hangs out together all the time. They're super close, but we are boozing it up at 10 a.m. with mimosas on a Saturday morning, meeting at the bar at 5 o'clock and not coming home till 2 o'clock on a Wednesday night. And I did that, while I was working. I remember, working in the ICU in this hospital with this guy who was so medically fragile. My job is to help mobilize people and get them up. They're super sick. So this guy's sitting on the edge of the bed and his heart rate is just super high. He's shaking and I'm behind him holding him up so he can sit up on the edge of the bed. And my head is kind of like next to his head. And I'm saying something like, are you feeling okay? Or you're doing a good job? Something. And there's a nurse in the room because he's, again, so medically complex. And the physical therapist is in the room. And he turns to me and he goes, what were you drinking? And I'm like, shit,
Yeah.
this guy smells booze on me. And I said, I'm sorry, I just had coffee, totally played it off. And, fortunately nothing came of that, but it was one of those moments where your just stomach drops and your heart rate shoots up and you're just like panicked.
And you blow right through it. I can think of I have an exact similar experience. I was working for a basketball team and we had a day game. We never had day games. And, the nighttime, Friday night, or it was like a Martin Luther King Day game. So Sunday night, I, drank all night. And I remember I was at my desk and the guy I worked for came up behind me and asked me about something. And he was just like, gee, he's like, dude, you smell. He didn't even say dude because that's not how we talked, He was an executive, but he talked about how I smelled and just reeked of booze. And I, like, same as you, your heart drops. And looking back at my history, I know that I drank behind situations like that, just to quiet that voice in my head. So it only got worse and worse. But in reality, and it sounds like it was for you, that's a stop sign that normal people don't blow through those stop signs.
Right. Isn't that the kicker? Yeah. Yeah. Like the normal people, and this is where that whole phenomenon of like normal comes into play because, I get the second DUI and, of course somebody normal wouldn't drink after that. Right. And it was a DUI where I'm going down this road and I don't even think I'm going that fast. Actually, it's, probably 25 miles an hour, 30, and I'm going like maybe 45. And this car comes out in front of me and we T-bone and it's nighttime. I was at the bar and I'm on my way home. It's actually like 11 o'clock. It's not even like terribly, it's not like 3 a.m. And it was a young girl. I was probably 26 at the time. And, man, I broke my ankle in that car accident. She got medevac to a hospital downtown in Philadelphia. And I think she sustained a mild concussion, but that was it. Like, holy crap, I could have killed that kid.
How drunk did you think you were?
Not bad. And I wish I could tell you what my BAC was, but
blood alcohol level.
Yeah. It was definitely I was wasted, because I pregame. You pregame before you go out, and then you go out, and then this way you save money too, right? So you're drinking your beverages at home, and then you can have a couple drinks at the bar, and then not spend a terrible amount of money, and then come home. Now I'm like coming home to my mom. I'm living with my mom. I had broken up with the boyfriend. So that was just like, how are you going to get through that? We were together for a while. And, it was just like, and you know what I thought? The first thought I had was, holy shit, I need some gum. I'm going to get caught. Not holy shit, I hope she's okay.
Yeah.
And, I went to the hospital. My mom picked me up.
What was that scene like with your mom? I mean,
my poor mother, she is an alcoholic. She's a functioning alcoholic. She, raised us three sisters. worked 2 jobs, and she just didn't have any coping skills. Her mom died when she was 16. And I think she, is a result of that and, my dad's stuff and whatever. The bottom line is that it doesn't handle things. She lives in denial a lot. Even to this day, if I mention or joke about jail or something like that, like, she just does not appreciate that,
Yeah.
She's a very loving woman. She's a very patient woman. So when she picks me up or I'm in trouble, one time she caught me sneaking in the window of our, house, like, she'll just like flare her nostrils at me. There's no consequences. There were no consequences in my house growing up. In high school, we would have parties all the time at my house. My mom would drink and pass out, And one time, she even came into the room. There was 5 of us in there. Heather was having a party. We were smoking a bong, passing it around, passing it around. She walks in, and she's like, "Hey, guys, you guys doing okay? Okay. What are you doing?" "Oh, nothing. We're just hanging out." And she closes the door. Like, if you couldn't get any more caught in that moment, like smoke-filled room, then I don't know what. And she couldn't rein us in. We were too, at least Heather and I, we were too rebellious.
Well, and you mentioned it too. She didn't have the coping skills for what she was going through in her life. And guess what? Like that sounds like how, if I was lucky enough to be functional, I would be as an adult. You don't have a playbook for those situations if you're an alcoholic that's active, right? I mean, like, you don't know what to do. My dad, who was a functional alcoholic, would have freaked out and slammed the bong over my head. Like, I don't think, and probably not over my head, but you get what I'm saying. Like, there's a way to react that probably wouldn't be healthy. We lived in fear of my dad, whereas you didn't have consequence. My dad did an incredible job with what he was given, like an incredible job. He went to work every day. He helped raise us. He set an example as far as being there and working hard. And when it was time for affection, he did give me that too. But I mean, he was an alcoholic. And it's that simple. So I didn't know what to expect. And he didn't know, he was never given the manual of life skills that I needed to survive as an alcoholic who got sober.
Yeah. And, I don't know what it was like for you, but, growing up, I blamed her and just criticized her. And even though I got away with stuff, it was like she wasn't the mom that she was supposed to be. And I don't know if you did that for your dad. Like,
I didn't. I was scared of him, but I had, like, my parents did a really good job of, like, keeping it together. Like, we had a very stable environment. He was unstable, right? As an alcoholic, my mom was not. But no, we had a stable environment, but I was terrified of him. And that's not normal,
Yeah. But the perspective that you share, I think is indicative of somebody who's worked a program and been able to, like, process that,
Mm-hmm.
It's, you just speak about it a little bit more factually and gently,
Mm-hmm.
compassionately.
So, okay, where did we last talk? We talked about you gotten into the accident. Okay. So,
all right. So at this point, though, I'm working in, like, a health profession. So I am in deep shit with the second DUI.
and what
I
happened?
don't know it. I don't know it at the time, but I mean, just talk about, like, panic and not being able to sleep and scared. So I have to report this DUI to the board, the state board, in order to keep my license. And then they've got to figure out what they're going to do with me and whether or not I get to keep my license. Now, this profession is my identity. It is what has made me proud as a human being. And so what happens if that gets taken away? And so this is when, things start to get really tough, but also things that kind of lead into my getting sober. So, I'm back and forth with the boyfriend. Okay. So I'm, like, wasted and now, doing drugs, and I'm like, okay.
You're in a very unhealthy relationship.
Exactly. Yeah. I decide that I'm going to crazy. I decided that I was going to team up with Mothers Against Drunk Driving, and that's how I was going to fix this DUI, and I was going to completely change. Now, I'm so messed up on drugs. I'm so wasted, and I have this like, yeah, yeah, you're just going to, start a program and just like turn this around like 180. And, like that is just not realistic.
Is this one
Like,
particular instance, or was this over a period of time you hatched this plan?
no, this is just like one night where I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to fix this problem. But it's like, oh, here's my idea. I'm going to connect with Mothers Against Drunk Driving. I'm going to stop drinking, and I'm going to like fix this. And they're going to see that I'm a good person, and I can keep my license and all that stuff. I was so far from being able to help anyone or be able to like represent an organization like that, especially in the state that I was in when I was thinking of the idea. So I end up having to, I get a lawyer. Okay. Then I find out that I have to go to jail. I find out that I'm going to go to jail for 10 days.
No, this is because of that DUI, the accident.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. And then I have to, well, how am I going to get 10 days off, from work to go to jail? Like in my profession at the job where I worked, 10 days off was not always approved,
How old are you right now, by the way? Like at this point in time?
I'm 26.
Okay.
So part of the program after you get a DUI is, okay, so I'm going to get a lawyer. I'm going to go to jail, but I also have to do these ARD classes again. They're going to make you do the driving course again, the safe driving. They're going to make you, they made me go to rehab after work. So
which is like an outpatient.
Yep. It's an outpatient 4 days a week. I think it's like 3 hours each night. And they like randomly drug test you and, test you for alcohol, and they have requirements like you have to go to an AA meeting and you have to get that signed, a piece of paper signed. So I'm like starting this. I think at this point, I don't know if I had told my boss that I got a DUI.
So you told your boss, hey, I got a DUI. This might come up, and you're still drinking at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if I had told her yet or if it was maybe like a month or so later, but when I'm going through this rehab after work, which I did for months actually, they, you sit around in a circle and you say how many days you have sober. And I remember this is like one of those pivotal, really impactful memories that I have in early recovery where, I'm still drinking, Pete. I'm still living with my mom. I do this rehab after work evaluation. I am lying through my teeth about how much I'm drinking. And that is when I'm thinking, oh no. It's just like I'm on the cusp of wanting to admit it, but I can't because I can't stop. Because again, January 2005 is when the CUI happened. And I'm still drinking. It's March now. I'm doing this rehab after work and I'm still drinking. And no one normal does that.
Yeah.
And I wanted to not drink. And I might have gotten a week. I don't remember. Like, I just remember not being successful at it. So I do this evaluation at rehab after work. My mom knows. Okay. My mom, of course, knows. And so I come home and I drink with her that night. And I remember thinking, this is some fucked up shit. Like, again, looked a lot at mom and said, you shouldn't be drinking.
Yeah.
I just got a second DUI. Like, it's very clear that we've got issues here and, but we're going to drink together anyway,
And there sounds like there's a lot of pain behind that drinking.
For probably, both of us, yeah.
Was there anything working at the rehab after work, the outpatient, that like aside from, it sounds like that test you took that had a lasting impact? Was there any of the therapy aspects or any of the sharing or opening up that you can remember that you took with you into getting sober?
Yeah. So what happened was, at the beginning of these meetings, we would say how many days we had sober. And for a few weeks, I would look at my phone and I would count the days from the DUI, and I would tell the group that's how many days I had sober. So I was showing up and I was lying, and it just chipped away at me because, here I was, knowing that I shouldn't be drinking anymore, and then lying about how much I'm drinking, or I'm sorry, lying about like my supposed sobriety date. Of course, this is my sobriety date. No one drinks after their second DUI. Well, weeks go by, and then I just, fess up to the group, and I just say, I'm not sober.
How did that feel?
It was a relief, Pete, huge relief, and scary. And I remember, like, around that same week, I called my sister, who's, sober. She has 2 years more than me, so she was probably 2 years sober at the time. And I remember that night after the evaluation, coming home drinking with my mom. I had a glass of wine in my hand, and I'm looking at myself in this mirror, this long mirror. And I got her on the phone, and she said, "How did it go?" My little sister. "How did it go?" "Well, it was okay. It was good." She's like, "Well, what do you think? Do you think you're an alcoholic?" And I go, "I don't know. This is where it gets so hard." She said, "Well, there's questions on the AA website. Why don't you just go and look at that?" And so I did, and the answer was obvious. So I think, I think that was, probably the first time I admitted that I was an alcoholic, and it was just like, shit, man, what am I gonna do?
Hi, I'm Hank. You might remember me from a show called King of the Hill. Check out a King of the Hill rewatch podcast. These boys ain't right, but they are funny. Find the podcast anywhere you get your podcasts or at roguemedianetwork.com. I tell you what.
Those are those windows I talk about. I was lying about, being sober, and a guy took me to a restaurant, and he said, "You need to go to rehab." And I kind of just climbed through like this last God window that opened up for me, and just fell on the over on the other side. Did you feel like at all you're talking to another, alcoholic? Did you feel like, okay, maybe this is the way?
There was definitely no relief at that moment. It was shit. Am I gonna do that? Can I do this? Not like I wanted to do it, but I just didn't know if I was capable, because again, you have the second DUI. I am losing my job. Like, there's so much on the line. I'm going to jail and I'm still drinking. Like, what else is going to stop somebody from drinking but that stuff, And so, I think saying it out loud was definitely like a pivotal moment, but I was still stuck in fear. And then weeks later, when I admitted to the group, I think a burden was released a little bit, and then you start hitting the meetings and listening. So like part of this rehab after work is going to these AA meetings, and because I'm living with my mom, I'm working downtown, and then my normal routine was, when I was drinking, was I'd come home and I would drink with my mom. And then I would, hang out with my friends on the weekend. And so now I admit that I'm an alcoholic. I answer these questions. I'm fess up to the group. And what am I going to do now? Like, I can't go home. I can't be around the alcohol. I don't know what to do. So I end up going to meetings after rehab, after work. So I would literally fill my day up so that I could not be tempted. And so these early meetings for me were a big blur, and they were filled with actually young people. And I didn't, relate a whole lot, but again, I was just so scared and knew that I had to get this. Otherwise I was F. I did not want to lose my job. You know, the writing was on the wall everywhere, and I didn't want to be an a-hole. You know what I mean? To
Yeah.
my family, to my community, all of that stuff. So, um, so I start hitting meetings, and you know, at some point along the line, like I get a sponsor,
I
and
just
then
want to hold
I
on.
have to come up.
I want to back up real quick. So that moment you're looking in the mirror, was that your last drink?
What was my last? No.
So you
Well,
drank. So you drank
no, it wasn't.
after that.
Yeah, I was. Yes, and actually, I ended up relapsing, so that was like my last drink. But yeah, I don't.
Sounds about right. Sounds like an alcoholic. Yeah.
Yeah,
So you go to,
yeah,
all right, so we'll get back. So you go to meetings, you're going, it's a blur, but you're doing it to save your ass, kind of like. For me, I was just out of moves. And
yeah.
and so I went, and then you have a sponsor, you feel it working. That's for me. I felt it working. Did you have the same feeling?
Yeah, like I wanted it. I wanted it so bad. And you know, again, like that first month there was just like a lot of panic, and like it's almost like you're walking around in a room and it's pitch dark. Like you've got to find your way out. That's kind of like what I was doing. I was doing the rehab after work because they told me, and I was going to meetings because they told me. Um, and then I started hitting meetings that I liked. You know, like the Saturday morning meeting. I went to a big book meeting on Monday night, a rewards meeting on Tuesday night, and I started seeing these people over and over again, and they smiled and they knew my name. And that's when it started clicking for me.
And so this is after your relapse?
No. So,
Because this is part of the
you know,
process. Like, people need to hear this. So you have this light bulb that comes on. You're feeling,
yeah,
you're feeling great. Okay, go ahead.
so I have this DUI in January. My first sobriety date was March 10th.
2006.
2006. Yeah. So my first sobriety date is in March. I pick up the program. I'm not drinking. Like I get through the spring and I get through the summer, and I'm still dabbling in this ex-boyfriend, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And
God, I feel like we keep getting sidetracked, but this is so interesting. So was he a drug almost too? I mean, because I had relationships like that, and I've heard that before. Did
yeah,
you look at him as a drug, looking back now?
for sure. For sure. I remember looking up like love addiction and stuff like that. You know, I don't think that's what it was. I think that I was just so desperate for something to fill me, you know, for love or from acceptance or security that yeah, I just couldn't let him go. Now during that time from March, you know, till October, I am totally working the steps. I get a sponsor. I meet with her once a week. You know, I'm hitting meetings, and I'm liking AA. And you know, the legal stuff is in the background, but of course, you know, when it comes to legal ramifications, that stuff takes months and months and months. So I'm just doing whatever I'm supposed to be doing, and um, I would give. Now this is way back. This is not Facebook era. This is MySpace era. So I would like, you know, try to hack into his MySpace and find out, you know, who he's hanging out with, and, you know, just like embedding myself in people's like comments and pages and trying to like find out information. Man, I would be up late or early in the morning just obsessing over this. This became an obsession.
Yeah.
And I would.
Are you talking about it with anybody?
Yeah. So I would give my sponsor, and that's a gift of the program.
Yeah,
like,
totally.
you know, they helped me. AA accepted me. I, you know, never felt judged, and was told and taught and guided that like the truth will set you free. So I learned that, and I would give this computer to my sponsor, and, you know, I would say, I'm doing it again. And, you know, it was very much like sobriety in that, you know, I kind of had to learn how to kick it, you
Mm-hmm.
know? So what happened was, I ended up drinking in October. It was one of my good friends' wedding. And this is crazy because, you know, even though I was sober, I still wasn't able to, like, do the right thing. I think I told this guy that, like, I was drinking, and then I went to this wedding, and then I'm texting him on the side, like, dramatic stuff. I don't know. Like,
Mhm.
I don't want to live, just dramatic stuff. And I am late for the rehearsal. I'm in the wedding. I'm late for the rehearsal because I have to stop. I've picked up 2 bottles of wine. Okay.
Yeah.
And I rush inside my apartment to get ready. One of the bottles breaks in the apartment. I just, like, sweep it up with a towel, start drinking, fill up whatever in my purse, and I'm going to bring that to the rehearsal dinner. And I'm drinking. It's not the rehearsal dinner. I guess it was the wedding. No,
Yeah.
this was rehearsal dinner because the next day is my sobriety date, and that was her wedding. I was so hungover. So yeah, like in the stall in the bathroom during the rehearsal dinner, like, I'm drinking
Because everybody
And-
thinks you're supposed to be sober.
Yeah,
And that is the worst
my-
of all time.
my
I mean,
friend.
yeah, I've done that number when you're literally hiding from people that you're drinking or at drinking events because you're supposed to be sober. Like, how's that, and that to me is the short-sightedness of somebody that's just trying to feel good for the next 5 minutes. Like, what's the end game there?
Terrible. Then I don't tell anybody I drank. Then, 4 months down the line, I'm ready to do my 4-step with my sponsor. My mom calls me and says, there's a letter for you here. And at this point, when I got sober, I actually ended up buying a condo. So I'm no longer living at my mom's house, but she, this letter comes to her house.
And you have this one time when you drink at the wedding and you don't drink again.
No, I don't.
So
I don't know
you're
how.
telling everybody you've stayed this sober for this big chunk of time, but you really do relapse. Okay.
Exactly. Yep. When you do if you have under a year in AA, you raise your hand. Oh, I have 8 months. Yeah. I have 9 months. Yeah. I mean,
Gotcha.
I was doing that. So, my mom calls me when I'm literally on my way to, like, some mountaintop with my sponsor to do my 4-step, and we pick up this certified letter, and it's this ex-boyfriend's uncle who was a judge in a local county, and basically it said, if you don't leave him alone, we're gonna press charges. So I broke down to my sponsor. I told her, I was honest with her, but along these past months, but I wasn't fully honest. I was doing the best that I can, but also still sick. And so told her about my relapse, and, there you have that new sobriety date. And
how did it feel to flush all that?
Felt so good. And I was doing therapy, like, weekly with this guy. I did that for like 2 years. That helped tremendously. And then you skip forward to, me telling my boss, hey, like, I need 10 days for jail. And she makes a joke and says, I've never had to approve time off for somebody for jail, but I think we can do that. And that was huge for me, Pete. Like, I wanted to lie and say my mom had a heart attack. I wanted to lie about this. And, being sober, like, that's just not the life you live anymore. And it takes time to figure out, like, like, kind of like the right way. But the people in AA guided me and told me, no, you can't lie. You got to tell her. And, she had known about the board. And I ended up having to do, like, a drug and alcohol thing for 2 years. I went
What do you mean
to
that
jail.
she'd known about the board?
Well, because I got that second DUI, I had to tell the licensing board that I got the DUI, and then they ended up putting me on, like, a professional monitoring program.
Okay, gotcha.
So I ended up getting, like, random drug tests for 2 years. Did jail. I got a bunch of letters from people in Connecticut where my sister was living in AA that send me letters to jail. And I mean, I did it. I didn't have a license for 2 years. I did that.
What did you do while you didn't have a
job.
license? You're still able to work, or?
Yeah, it was a very fond memory. I don't know if I would have told you that at the time, but, like, I lived kind of near a bus stop, and then the bus would bring me to Philly. And, God forbid, I would have to call this 1-800 number every morning for 2 years to see whether or not I got picked for a random drug test for this professional monitoring program in order for me to keep my license. And, God forbid, I would have to get a test because I don't have a car. So then I got to take the bus to this place to get the drug test. And then I got to walk to the bus stop to get back to, the hospital to work. And, I told my boss all about that, like, hey, I might be 15 minutes late, you know what I mean? Because I have to do this.
And that is like, to me, that's so living in sobriety, because like for me, I needed to get broken down, right? I needed to live in like a recovery house. I needed to work at a KFC when I was, in my 30s. I needed to be, I just needed to be, and I needed the gift of desperation when I was drinking and using, to be willing to go to any lengths, whether it's go to a bus stop to get to work for a job that I love, or whether it's go to a meeting or call somebody, because I know I want to stay sober, because not only is it terrible to go drink, but I love how this is starting to make me feel.
Yeah. And there were so many God moments there, like when, of course, with my boss and her accepting it, and me seeing that the truth actually does set you free. Then I have to get like out of jail and go on probation. And I remember thinking, well, I already used 10 days of vacation time, and, like to go out to Westchester from Philadelphia, it would take me 2 hours on the bus.
That's a long ride. Yeah.
Then I have to get PTO time approved to see the probation officer. And I remember saying to the probation officer, like, I just don't have a lot of PTO time left. Like, I love this job. I want to keep this job. And he's like, that's cool. Like, when, what's your bus stop? And sometimes I would take the train. And he's like, all right, well, why don't you take the train on Wednesday and after work and meet me at the Chestnut Hill Dunkin' Donuts right by the train, and we'll call that our visit. And I was like, amazing. That's amazing.
Yeah. And those are things like people start to work with you, because people, I think, we're just like when you're an alcoholic, you're the last to know. For me, I don't know what I'm giving off sometimes. Like, people see it in your eyes. They're like, oh, okay. Like, this is somebody who's telling the truth. There's that vibe that comes off people, which leads to like real conversations and real moments like you're talking about when for me, when I actually got sober.
Yeah. In the first year, when I was fighting for my professional license and to keep it, and had to go through all of that stuff, because at one point I got a letter from them and I didn't understand what it meant. And what it meant was, you can't work until we approve that you can go back. So I'm at the hospital. I have a full caseload, and I called this lady to get clarification. The next day after I got the letter, and she goes, oh, no, you're not supposed to work. So I have to tell my boss I'm not allowed to work, and I don't know when I'm going to be able to come back. The fact that she said okay to that is crazy.
Yeah.
And then, it was just like a waiting game. I get this lawyer, and he's, they throw a psych eval on me, because I'm pissed at this woman at the government office for not getting her shit together. And like, come on, I've got letters and sobriety, and like, why are we dragging our feet? You know what I mean? And so she goes, I think I should give you a psych eval. And I'm like, oh, F you, So,
okay, so give you a what? What's it called?
A psychiatric
evaluation. Oh, a psych eval. Okay, gotcha.
So now it's in Temple, in a bad part of Philly. I've got to figure out how I'm going to get there. Okay, no problem. I'm going to take the bus and the train and the, walk and this and that. And I get there. My lawyer is saying to me, keep it short, Courtney. Keep it short. Only answer what they say. This guy is in AA. He's done a ton of pro bono work.
The attorney is okay.
A long time member of AA, and loved that guy.
Somebody you met in the meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He heard about my case and all that, and he decided to help me.
That's the kind of stuff that happens too.
Yeah. Because I had gone through 2 lawyers before that.
So what happens now? So take me up. So do you get the psych eval, or you?
Yeah, I get the psych eval, and I have this direction from the attorney to say minimal, and I walk in and I'm so nervous. Like my job and whether I can go back is essentially based on this kind of discussion, interview, assessment, whatever you want to call it. And I walk in there, and there's 3 guys. They're in white coats. They're all doctors. They've got, pens in their pockets and everything. And we sit down in this room. It's the 4 of us. And it turns out they're all in AA. And I tell them everything. I tell them about my relapse. I tell them about, like, everything, about how I tried to do my 4-step. And, it was just crazy because the direction from the attorney is that you really shouldn't say much,
Yeah.
You can get, you just don't want to get into trouble or have anything delayed. And I spoke honestly and I spoke truthfully, and it was just wonderful. And they said, of course you're ready, And so I, ended up going back to work, and, there was just so much humility because in that time, in those 2 years of early recovery, people drove me to meetings. I had, these doctors from AA that gave me the psych evaluation, like, tell me they're in recovery too, like professional, like, physicians, my boss who gave me time off to go to jail, these people in Connecticut that I didn't
Wrote
know
letters.
that wrote letters, like, and just learning how to be like a daughter to my mom. She would bring me places. I remember just being in the car with her after she picked me up from the airport, or picked me up from the train station after work. And I remember her, like, kind of slamming on the brakes. He was kind of like an anxious driver. And it was just, I remember feeling like a visceral reaction of annoyance. Like, why are you pumping the brakes like that? Like, just chill.
Yeah.
And I remember for the first time, like, just not saying anything, and just giving her that grace and just being like, wow, something is working, because I would have just given her major left there, and I did it,
Yeah.
And so it just, sobriety, has just kind of like, progressed, ebbed and flowed, just kind of all kinds of changes.
By the way, I read something today, and this made me think of you. It doesn't stop. Like the meter doesn't stop moving forward in sobriety. Talk to me a little bit about how your life has evolved.
Well, I ended up being able to change jobs, being honest about that issue with the modern drinking program and the DUI, and going through my 20s and early 30s and trying to figure out dating. Very weird to, be in a dating field and say, oh, do I tell them I don't drink? Do I tell them in AA? Do I tell them about sobriety? Like, when do I tell them? And there's a huge evolution in that. And
what do you tell other women that you talk to in recovery about that, about early dating? What do you share?
I mean, you've got to follow your heart, and you've got to listen to the voice, and you've got to listen to what the disease is saying. Like, my disease tells me I'm not good enough, tells me I'm going to be judged, whatever. And when you are honest with another alcoholic, you have your circle of women, you are hitting meetings and talking to God. Like, that shit just takes care of itself, and you don't have to worry about it. And that's what I say. You have to continue to be honest with the people that are in your group, though, because otherwise you're just stuck in your head, and you're gonna keep on being sick.
Yeah, and you're going to you're going to be wound pretty tight on any kind of date or interview process or anything like that.
Yeah.
So Courtney and I are tight. So she had started to date her husband, and it was very obvious that she was like falling in love with this guy. I wouldn't say love yet because it was very early. Court, I can remember, I don't even know if I've told you this. I can remember, and this is good AA. I'm sober, you're sober. I was living in Louisiana. You were calling me and we were talking about, you're like, I'm just not sure if he likes me. He didn't like make a move. And I remember thinking like, trust me, he likes you. And here you are married with the kid, right?
Yeah.
That is the beauty of sobriety. I'm like, I know he likes you. And let me tell you, I've had a million conversations with other dudes and other women in AA about the same exact thing with you recently. So it's just that is such a beautiful thing to be able to bounce stuff off people and have it be so real, because there's a uniqueness about one alcoholic to another. I know exactly the fear. I know exactly the self-doubt. I know exactly that negative self-talk. And I also know what's the beautiful stuff that's on the other side when you break through that bullshit, because that's what it all is.
Yeah. Yeah, we are so fortunate that we cut right to the chase, or we already know we don't even have to talk about it. Yeah. Relationships are so hard, and I think like right now with my recovery journey, it's about marriage. It's about, changing for my marriage. Now I have a 4-year old, so when I had this baby, first of all, I found Brian and I was like, bam, you're it. All right, let's have a baby. All right, let's get married. So we bought a house all in a year because I am impulsive and I am determined and I want all this stuff. And he signed on. And it's ironic that he signed on because like he's very trigger shy. Like will take a while to like buy something big, and he's just a very cautious guy, which is one of the reasons why I married him, because he's kind of like the opposite of me. He's safe that way. But anyway, we just had this crazy, crazy year. And like I have struggled. I was not hitting meetings. And I had, oh man, it was a lot to deal with. And when you're not hitting meetings, it's just terrible. It was terrible. I hit rock bottom. I didn't know if my marriage was going to last, and what happened was I called a woman in AA, and I said, I am at my wit's end. I don't think that drinking really, you never know. You never know. It's the monkey on your back. You could turn around and all of a sudden you'll be drinking alcohol. And I've always respected that. So, and I've had flashes of where I've like wanted to drink after breakups and stuff, but nothing that has really, scared me too much. It's a healthy fear.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm in this marriage and I'm just like desperate. It's just rock bottom. And this woman teaches me how to do a 10-step daily, which is basically an inventory on myself and to recognize the patterns that I had in this marriage that were just devastating my marriage,
Yeah, and if you're going to meetings every day, you pick up on that behavior. When you're doing a 10th step, I mean, it's always good to practice a 10th step, whether you're going in that inventory, whether you're going to meetings or not. But for me, I get so far removed from that behavior that it's like I'm just so disconnected that I can allow myself to get so far left. And I need to. Yeah. And so when somebody says take an inventory, I'm like, yeah, me? Yeah. It's like, yeah, dude, you.
Yeah, or I just don't feel like it.
Yeah.
And I think the big thing about meetings and sticking with like the fellowship of AA and getting your clan is that they keep you accountable and, kind of like teach you how to do right. Because again, I mean, I didn't have role models for marriage. My first thought is wrong, and I'm a selfish human being, and I couldn't see like my side. And if you can't see your side, then you're not going to change.
So how did you get back to that place? Was the inventory what helped you get well? Because I remember you talked to me about this. Yeah, like you talked to me about you upped your meetings.
Totally upped my meetings and prayed every day, multiple times a day, and did the writing. And that righted my ship big time.
What does untreated alcoholism look like for you? I guess you just told me.
Yeah. It's like, it's just outward blame. For me, it's anger, it's discontent, it's impatience. I mean, those three things are big for me when I'm not hitting meetings.
What do you tell like a newcomer that's not sure? I was at a meeting today where a girl said, I think I'm an alcoholic. And I'm not going to go up and talk to her unless she wants to talk to me. But like, if it's a younger dude, maybe I'll do it. But what do you tell? Yeah. What do you tell somebody?
Well, first of all, you like want to reach out to them and just welcome them, and same sex is encouraged. So I think that's a good point. But like if someone's saying that to me, I'm going to say, well, I said the same thing. And I looked at those questions. I mean, because that was my personal experience, and then if you're working with somebody that says that, you want to like sit down and do like, more work on it. It's just like, all right, well, write down all the things that you did that you didn't wish you did when you were drinking or when you were hungover. The list is long for me.
you're talking to me today. You're living like just like what we're doing now. You're living in the solution. You know, like you work like life is not easy. It's hard. You work on your marriage. You have a child. I mean, like your life is full. I talked to you about this. What does your life look like if you're drinking?
I definitely like shudder to think about that. And I've thought about that a lot this past year with like the quarantine. I'm divorced. I am angry. My child doesn't want to be near me. I am alone, you know, and I probably don't have a job. I probably might have killed somebody in the car because even though I have repercussions from DUIs, like I am that idiot that's going to go and get in the car when I drink again.
Anything else? This is fantastic. I don't want to keep you all day. You were really good.
You're really good.
Anything? It's so funny, Court. Like you kind of started off speaking softly, and then all of a sudden it's like boom.
Yeah. I was nervous.
You did a phenomenal job.
Thanks, Pete. You made me very comfortable. I can't wait to hear it. I'm so nervous. Like,
You were awesome.
All right, love you.
All right, love you too. Bye. Thanks so much for listening to the Payoff with Pete. Once again, I'm Pete Souza. And of course, we are part of the Rogue Media Network. All kinds of good podcasts you can find at roguemedianetwork.com. And of course, you can find this podcast and all those other ones wherever you get your podcasts, iTunes, Spotify, other spots like that.
This has been a Rogue Media podcast.
Frozen, frozen, heroes. Gonna tell you about frozen, frozen, heroes. Gonna tell you about.
Hey, I'm Zach,
And I'm Mike.
and we have a fantastic new podcast to tell you about. Bros, Foes, and Heroes. It's the two of us looking into the world of comics, breaking down some characters that you may have never heard of, and some that are just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, so Zach comes up with a character each time, and I go into it just completely blind. I don't know who this person is or what their abilities are or anything, and basically I guess we kind of go over their origin story and just some of the ridiculous stuff that maybe, especially Golden Age stuff.
Oh, Golden Age stuff is always the best, and we will make sure to highlight all of the shenanigans and just absolute weirdness of everything.
Yeah, that's right. So subscribe today and follow us on Instagram at Bros, Foes, Heroes.
And if you don't, I know where you live. Not really, but please subscribe.
Frozen, frozen, heroes. Gonna tell you about frozen, frozen, heroes. Gonna tell you about.
Hi, I'm Hank. You might remember me from a show called King of the Hill. Check out a King of the Hill rewatch podcast. These boys ain't rap, but they are funny. Find the podcast anywhere you get your podcasts or at roguemedianetwork.com. I tell you what.